Reborn, I came back to seize his empire the moment my husband died. My husband, Arthur Shaw, is the Crown Prince of London's elite high society. In my previous life, Arthur chose to fake his death in order to play a true love game. He lived a blissful life with his true love, while I diligently managed the Shaw family's business. Eventually I fell ill from overwork and longing, leaving me with only a short time to live. However, upon hearing the news and returning, he only waited for me to fall asleep before he was going to marry his true love with the most luxurious wedding in the world. I spat blood and died with my eyes wide open. After Rebirth, I no longer want to be a pawn in their love game. I chose to inherit Arthur's business empire with tears in my eyes. Since the scumbag is dead, there's no need for him to come back. Promotion, wealth, and husband's death. 3 great joys in life, and I've finally encountered them all. Just like in my previous life, while I was working overtime in Canary Wharf to negotiate projects for the Shaw Group, I received the news of my husband's death. His 2 childhood friends looked sorrowful as they told me, "Charlotte, please bear your loss with strength. An accident happened to Arthur while he was bungee jumping in the Scottish Highlands. He fell to the bottom of the gorge. We searched for him all day, but couldn't find any trace of him. He's probably not alive." My husband Arthur and I are a typical arranged marriage within old money families, matching in status and background. He is known as the Crown Prince of London's high society. Anyone with a pair of eyes can see that the Sinclair family has been declining for years. Although I, Charlotte Sinclair, am a daughter of the Sinclair family, having a stepmother meant having a stepfather at home, and my relationship with the Sinclair family is not good. So, Grandfather Shaw isn't afraid that I would take things from my husband's family to give to my own family. Unlike Arthur, who has no talent for business, I inherited some of my parents' business acumen. So, when Grandfather Shaw chose me to marry his precious grandson, he hoped I could help Arthur hold up the Shaw family. At first, Arthur treated me with indifference, but later he seemed to grow fond of me, becoming the doting husband adored by the British tabloids. Upon hearing the news of Arthur's death, I pretended to be devastated and asked, "What did you say? Arthur is dead, and it happened during a bungee jumping accident." One of his childhood friends, James Harrington, cautiously said, "The Highland Search and Rescue Team searched the gorge for a full day and night, but never found any trace of Arthur." The team leader said, "It's possible that wild animals might have taken him away." Hearing this, I instantly broke down in tears, crying uncontrollably as if the tears were free. I don't believe it. He even promised to celebrate our golden wedding anniversary with me decades from now. We loved each other so much. How could he suddenly be gone forever? The 2 men were at a loss, overwhelmed by my tears. Lewis Sterling spoke up to comfort me. "Charlotte, Arthur is gone, but you have to pull yourself together. You need to manage his family business for him. Besides, if he has any spirit left in heaven, he definitely wouldn't want to see you so heartbroken." I acted unreasonably, shouting at them. He was always into extreme sports. Free solo climbing, alpine skiing, aerial surfing, bungee jumping, he excelled at every one of them. Now you're telling me he died from bungee jumping? I don't believe it. James handed me the wedding ring Arthur had taken off before bungee jumping. He avoided my eyes and said, "Arthur's last wish must have been for the Shaw Group to continue developing well. I believe since you love him so much, you'll definitely manage the company well for him." I shook my head vigorously, crying. "You have to let the Highland Rescue Team keep looking. If they can't find him in 1 day, then 10 days, a month, even a year, I can wait. Whatever amount they need to keep searching, I'll pay them. Arthur promised he'd spend my birthday with me. He can't go back on his word." Lewis said sympathetically, "We know you can't accept this right away, but the fact is what it is. You need to learn to accept it." Arthur's solicitor calmly told me, Mr. Shaw had a will during his lifetime stating that if anything happened to him, all his assets would be inherited by Mrs. Charlotte. I took Arthur's financial documents, flipped through them, and pretended to be overwhelmed as I slammed the door and ran out. Otherwise, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to stop myself from laughing out loud. Tfu. Back at my multi-million-pound townhouse in Mayfair, I lay on my king-sized bed, rolling around with laughter. Grandfather Shaw passed away a year ago. And with no one left to contest the inheritance, the billions of the Shaw family fortune will all be mine. It was worth it, playing the role of the devoted partner alongside that scumbag for so long after my rebirth. I laughed so hard at the thought of the wealth I was about to inherit that I snorted like a pig. As for Arthur, that despicable scumbag, since he loves faking his death so much, let him truly die for real. The thought of my past life makes my heart as cold as the knife that has been slicing fish at the Tesco counter for 10 years. In my previous life, after being married to Arthur for 3 years, he met his so-called true love. To pursue her and prove the loyalty of their relationship, he chose to fake his death and conceal his identity. But he couldn't let go of everything belonging to the Shaw family. So, he set his sights on me. He began to pretend to like me little by little until his affection grew deep, turning into the famous doting husband in the media. Gradually moved by him, I also fell deeply in love with him. At that time, I even joked with Arthur that we two had followed the trend of falling in love after marriage. Upon hearing this, he smiled and gently stroked my hair. Yet, I failed to notice the mockery in his eyes. After he died, even though others pursued me, I never remarried. I stayed at the Shaw estate to help manage the household affairs and eventually collapsed from exhaustion with only a short time left to live. Upon hearing this news, he returned in grand fashion with his true love Eleanor and their son Archie. He had the world's most luxurious wedding prepared at a grand cathedral, waiting only for me to close my eyes in the hospital bed so he could rightfully give Eleanor a wedding. After hearing the news while lying in the hospital bed, I spat blood and died with my eyes wide open. After rebirth, I no longer have a love-struck mind. Facing Arthur's deep affection, I used all my acting skills to pretend I was utterly moved by him. My efforts were not in vain. He firmly believed I loved him just as deeply. My love for him was enough to let me take care of everything after his death, so that when he returns, he can simply enjoy the fruits of my labor. So to outsiders, we were a golden couple made for each other. No one would have guessed that deep down, both of us were scheming against each other. I devotedly managed Arthur's company affairs, letting him continue living his life as a wealthy trust fund heir. Every second I spent with him, I was thinking about the inheritance in my heart. I want the inheritance. After his feigned death, the Shaw family's business empire and billions of pounds in assets will all be mine. Heaven rewards the diligent. I have finally waited for this day. Boundless wealth, here I come. 5 days later, I held a grand funeral for Arthur. I immediately processed his death certificate and cancelled his national insurance and legal identity. From now on, Arthur Shaw, the heir of the Shaw Group, is just a certified dead person. This time, I personally handled Arthur's funeral and did not leave it to his 2 childhood friends. They were hesitant at first, but James advised, "Don't push yourself too hard. Lewis and I have been Arthur's close friends for many years. Leave the funeral arrangements to us. You should rest. There will be plenty of work for you and the group in the future." "My greatest sorrow is a heart that has died," I said. "I want to personally see him off on his final journey. He loved me so much, and I'm sure he would have wanted me to accompany him on this last leg. Don't you think so?" The two of them exchanged glances, probably thinking about how to refuse me in a reasonable way. As childhood friends of Arthur, they were fully aware of his plan to fake his death and had been helping him put on a show in front of me in my previous life. Overwhelmed by grief back then, I had left the funeral arrangements to them, and it was handled very discreetly and simply. The news of Arthur's death was not widely publicized by the media, which was entirely inconsistent with his status as the Crown Prince of London's high society. But how could I have noticed these hidden tricks at that time? In this life, I will give him a grand funeral that is known to the world to repay him for his schemes. Lewis took a deep breath and said, "Charlotte, it's not that we refuse, but Arthur would definitely not want you to worry about his funeral while you're grieving. He would be heartbroken for you." I deeply admired his ability to blatantly lie without batting an eye. I wore a sorrowful expression. My wedding to him was entirely arranged by him from beginning to end. His funeral I will personally handle. He cherished me deeply and I must repay him. Don't try to persuade me anymore. My mind is made up. If you keep urging me, I can't help but suspect your true intentions. Seeing how firmly I spoke, they finally nodded in agreement. Inside, I was so happy I wanted to scream. This immense fortune will soon be mine. I contacted major British media outlets and spread the news of the unexpected death of the Crown Prince of London's elite circle. This news quickly climbed to the top of the trending charts. Most people across the UK became aware of this news on the day of the funeral. All the elite figures from London society watched me crying uncontrollably while paparazzi outside kept flashing their cameras non-stop. Foo? After the ceremony ended, as I left the venue, I was surrounded by media crews from various outlets. Their microphones thrust directly toward my mouth. Mrs. Shaw, as Arthur's wife, do you think there's something suspicious about his death? After all, Mr. Shaw had been involved in various extreme sports since he was a teenager. Calling him an experienced player wouldn't be an exaggeration. So why did he suddenly die in such an accident this time? I heard the search and rescue team didn't find Mr. Shaw's body. So how can they be sure he's already dead? Their questions came one after another. Good. The more they asked, the better. I saw cold sweat already beading on Lewis and James's foreheads and couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. But on the surface, I was just a pitiful woman who had just lost her husband, her pillar of support. I was overwhelmed by the reporters' tricky questions, pushed back step by step, for how could I possibly answer these questions? After all, I was just as shocked as anyone else when I was informed that my husband had passed away. So, Lewis and James, my husband's two childhood friends, stepped forward to respond. That's right. True mates should help each other out. Having their first-hand confirmation is always better than my explanation. Lewis took the microphone and said, "All right, James and I were both on site and witnessed him accidentally fall during the bungee jump. Many others present also saw it happen." James continued, "We've had search teams look several times, but we couldn't find Mr. Shaw. He was likely taken by wild predators in the rugged highlands. Given this tragedy, the person most heartbroken is undoubtedly Mrs. Shaw. We kindly ask the media to give her some space and stop pressing her with questions." The reporters stopped focusing on Arthur's death and instead turned their attention to the development of the Shaw Group. After Mr. Shaw's passing, what will be the future of Shaw Group? May I ask, Mrs. Shaw, what are your plans moving forward? The head of the public relations department at Shaw Group took over the question and replied, "There's no need to worry about this. In the past, it was Mrs. Shaw who led us in our endeavors, and in the future, she will continue to lead our company. We believe that under her leadership, our group will only get better and better." They were responsible for speaking, and I was responsible for nodding frequently to show my agreement. Afterward, I watched these interview clips over and over again and saved them. All of this means that Arthur Shaw is a thing of the past. From now on, the Shaw Group will be my domain. With the will Arthur left behind, I smoothly inherited his business empire. At this point, I also had the time to check on Arthur's current situation. I hired a professional private investigator at a high price, instructing him to monitor Arthur around the clock. If this madman wants to play the true love game, he could simply divorce me and then pursue Eleanor. But he just won't. Instead, he pretends to be so affectionate, making me fall in love with him against my will and work tirelessly for him. I won't let him continue to feel smug and satisfied. Looking at the information sent by the private investigator, I couldn't help but sneer coldly. Arthur pretended to faint near Eleanor's home in the Cotswolds. After being rescued by Eleanor, he feigned amnesia and successfully stayed at her family cottage. He is now pursuing Eleanor. It must be said that his handsome face, which rivals that of any British film star, gives him an unbeatable advantage in matters of the heart. In my past life, I couldn't escape his tender advances either. Now, Eleanor naturally couldn't help but fall in love with him. Eleanor lived in the deep countryside where the internet connection wasn't very stable. So, Arthur didn't pay much attention to news notifications on his phone either. As a result, he had no idea that he was already considered dead in the eyes of everyone. Even the title of Crown Prince of London High Society had already been passed on to someone else. In my past life, Arthur believed that Eleanor was in love with him, a penniless man, and firmly held that they were true lovers. But I don't think so. After all, Eleanor and Arthur weren't meeting for the first time. Back then, Arthur and I had made plans with friends to visit a country pub in the Cotswolds. In the countryside, we met Eleanor, who happened to be working part-time at that pub to help support her family. After chatting casually for a few moments, she casually said, "If I like someone, as long as he treats me well, I'll be with him regardless of whether he's rich or not." Mrs. Shaw, you're really lucky to have such an outstanding partner like Arthur. If I had someone like him, I'd gladly eat simple bread and endure hardships with him. Blushing, she glanced at Arthur. That single glance went straight into Arthur's heart. 5. When I was reborn, the two had already met. I wanted to know how the two had developed, so I specifically investigated. After returning from the country pub that time, Arthur had his assistant look up Eleanor's information. As it turned out, he discovered that Eleanor was poor but ambitious, kind-hearted, optimistic, and not at all the kind of gold digger who despised the poor and fawned on the rich. For a young master like him, born with a silver spoon in his mouth, whose parents only provided money but rarely offered companionship, Eleanor's appeal to him was undoubtedly immense. Arthur wasn't entirely satisfied with me, his arranged marriage wife, either. He began contemplating how to get rid of me without affecting the company's development while still being able to win the beauty he desired. In the end, his actions were exactly the same as in his previous life. This madman started targeting me. He started pretending to grow fond of me, and I did my best to play along with his passionate act. Our relationship seemed to gradually deepen until we fell in love. Arthur also turned into a husband who doted on his wife. And from time to time, the tabloids would report news about Arthur spending lavishly on gifts for his wife. When he felt the timing was right, believing I had completely fallen in love with him and could no longer live without him, he suddenly disappeared, leaving everything behind to pursue his true love. After all, in his opinion, with my love for him, I would definitely help him safeguard everything belonging to the Shaw family. However, after Rebirth, in my eyes, he has become a greasy and repulsive, stinky man. No matter how much he shows off in front of me, I remain indifferent. My feelings for him were completely exhausted the moment he carried out his vicious plan. So, when Arthur booked that bungee jumping project again, I was incredibly excited. How could I possibly stay calm when I was about to inherit his billions? From the various scenes captured in the materials, Arthur and Eleanor got along quite well with a faint spark of love flickering between them. Eleanor took great care of the amnesiac Arthur. This further convinced Arthur that she was a good girl who did not crave wealth and luxury. I couldn't help but marvel at Arthur's good fortune. Before me, his grandfather and parents had provided him with a comfortable and affluent life free from worries about food and clothing. After his relatives passed away one after another, he had me, his wife, to manage the company for him, allowing him to live carefree as the domineering CEO. Now, by Eleanor's side, she treats him with gentle care, not even letting him do the slightest bit of work. Truly, the fortunate life of a young master. Not long after, I received the news that these two had become a couple. Arthur's skill with sweet talk has always come naturally to him. He assured Eleanor, even though I've lost my memory, even if I recover it in the future, my love for you will never change. Knowing they were now in the honeymoon phase, I temporarily set them aside since I have now inherited the entire Shaw family. My scumbag father and stepmother are extremely envious. Cease. My father has repeatedly asked me to come back for a meal and to settle things once and for all. I made time to go back. At the dinner table, my father put on a loving father act and said to me with concern, "Charlotte, eat more. You've had a hard time these days. Dad knows that you're suffering the most since Arthur passed away. It's okay. You still have your dad to rely on. Whether he can be relied on or not, I've long understood over the years after my mum passed away and he remarried. That home was no longer mine. Now, apart from money, which will never betray me, what else can I trust?" Seeing that I kept eating and drinking without saying a word, my dad didn't feel awkward at all and continued on his own. "The Shaw family has a big business. If you can't manage it all, I can help you shoulder some of the burden. And your younger brother, he really likes you as an older sister. He's working at a company now, and you can take him out more often to broaden his horizons. You're siblings and you'll need to support each other in the future." I looked up at him and said, "Thank you, Dad." However, although managing the Shaw family's business is hard work, I find it rewarding and wouldn't want to trouble you with it. As for the others, I don't have the patience to play along with their act. Warm family scenes have never been my thing, have they? My stepmother spoke up with dissatisfaction. Your husband is already dead and you have no children. Who else can you rely on in the future if not your own family? This place has raised you for over 20 years, so wanting a share of the pie isn't too much to ask, is it? I gave her a cold glance. In this woman's eyes, all she sees is ambition. This is the first time since I got married that she's personally come forward to ask for benefits. Usually, she just urged my dad or me to speak up on her behalf. Unfortunately, I've never agreed to any of it. I coldly said, the principle of relying on oneself rather than others was something I learned at home. Let me be clear. The Shaw family's business assets have nothing to do with you, so don't even dream about it. My dad got anxious. Why are you being so clear-cut about this, child? Those are matters for the elders and have nothing to do with your brother. Shouldn't you always help your brother out? I retorted, no, my mom only has me as her daughter, so I don't acknowledge any brother. The family business is passed down only to sons, not daughters. After your son graduated from university, you let him join the company's management. He hasn't worked at the grassroots level and doesn't know how to run the company, causing significant losses. Aren't you just trying to get me to cover for him? That's why you're talking to me, your daughter, so nicely about feelings. But Dad, why don't you think about it? Do you even deserve it? My dad slammed down his silverware and said with a dark face, you've got some nerve now talking to me like that. I smiled. Don't get angry. There'll be plenty of other things for you to be mad about later. I'm full, so I'm leaving first. Enjoy your meal. After saying that, I put down my napkin and stood up to leave. My dad cursed me furiously from behind, calling me an unfilial daughter. I couldn't help but sneer. He really has no grasp of the situation at all. To sum up my parents' story in one sentence, a beautiful, wealthy woman was completely ruined by a poor man who rose from humble origins. My mother couldn't bear the shock and passed away in sorrow, leaving me to endure years of injustice in that family. Now I finally have the ability to seek justice for her. The weather has turned cold. It's time for the Sinclair family to go bankrupt. 7. It seems that a relationship filled with setbacks is what makes for a truly unforgettable love. Arthur is now facing a situation where two men are competing for one woman. Eleanor has another suitor and his name is Sebastian. Sebastian's family owns a resort in Eleanor's hometown, making him a wealthy second-generation heir, big or small. In the past, Arthur wouldn't have looked down on the other's wealth at all. But now he has lost his memory, owns nothing, and is a 6-foot-tall man who still has to rely on Eleanor to support him. There's simply no comparison anymore. Before Sebastian appeared, Arthur's pursuit of Eleanor was merely sweet talk without spending a penny. He believed that love tainted by money was not genuine love. In their daily interactions, when Eleanor was doing housework, Arthur would sit by and watch her labor, praising her as truly a virtuous woman, and saying the man who married her would be truly blessed. After Eleanor returned from work, she still had to drag her tired body to clean up the rubbish Arthur had left behind during the day. Arthur was used to living a life of ease and comfort, a man who wouldn't even help pick up a bottle of milk if it fell. So it was always Eleanor who served him. Arthur wanted to test true love, believing it was all part of his trial. After Sebastian appeared, things were different, and Eleanor finally realized how it felt to be truly pursued and valued. Sebastian would send flowers and gifts to Eleanor. And when she was tired, he would thoughtfully say, let me handle it. You go rest for a bit and have some water. I bought you something to eat. Have a bite first so you don't go hungry. Can only say it's hard to evaluate. After the comparison, Arthur's pursuit seemed somewhat inadequate. Eleanor also seemed tired of this daily life of serving Arthur, who just watched her busy without even offering a helping hand. She took the initiative, showing him a photo of Arthur, trying to awaken his memories and go back to live a luxurious life in the Shaw family mansion. Arthur stiffened all over, pretending to have a headache and couldn't remember. 8. In fact, he should have wanted more than anyone else to return to the Shaw family and be their Prince of London society. In his previous life, he had secretly saved a sum of money in an unknown account. And during the time he faked his death, he withdrew money whenever needed. So his life was going quite smoothly, and I collapsed from exhaustion in the 4th year after his fake death. After I died, he smoothly took over everything I left behind. At that time, I had just finished negotiating a major project with the government, a project that could secure the Shaw Group's wealth and prosperity for the next 20 years. So he and Eleanor enjoyed the benefits without lifting a finger. He didn't need to work hard and continued living like a young master. In this life, I've processed his death certificate and all the money under his name has been transferred to my account. Therefore, he is truly penniless. He had no choice but to find his 2 childhood friends. According to the documents sent by the private detective, Arthur had approached James and Lewis to discuss his return to the Shaw family. This was considerably earlier than in his previous life when he had been living comfortably outside and hadn't been in any hurry to return. In this life, having experienced what it was like to be truly penniless, he finally understood the importance of money. Even the ordinary daily necessities like firewood, rice, oil, and salt cannot be separated from money. I heard the recording of their conversation. Arthur said, "Eleanor has passed my test. She and I share true love. I plan to take her back to the Shaw family. As for Charlotte, I will divorce her and give her a substantial sum of money. I really can't thank you enough. You haven't contributed anything to the Shaw Group. I've been holding it all together, yet as soon as you arrive, you try to push me out." Arthur's heart is truly ruthless. James said, "Arthur, this is a bit tricky. You don't know. Everyone online thinks you're already dead. Also, your wife has processed your death certificate and your legal identity has been cancelled." Upon hearing this, Arthur anxiously said, "What? How could you let her do this?" Lewis said with a bitter smile, "We originally told her that the 2 of us would handle your funeral arrangements, but as your wife, she wanted to accompany you on your final journey, and we had no grounds to refuse." James added, "Who knew she would act so quickly? By the time we found out, your death certificate had already been processed. I've recently been discussing a collaboration with Lewis's father's company, and Lewis has been learning alongside me." Then, he said to Arthur, "Arthur, since you no longer exist in this world, why not just stay by Eleanor's side? After all, you're pursuing true love, and true love conquers all. With love, you can survive on water alone." Arthur couldn't believe that his childhood friends had betrayed him and began berating them. Finally, James stopped speaking up for him as well. "I remember a while back when the Harrington family had business troubles, I introduced several deals to help them get through it. You're soft-mouthed when you eat someone's food and short-handed when you take from someone." James completely sided against Arthur. Arthur's 2 childhood friends both disapproved of him coming back. "After all, after I took power, I took good care of the businesses of both families, and they couldn't bear to lose this favorable development situation. This is great." Arthur lost his status and identity, became penniless, lost his friends, and turned into a lonely man. It's truly satisfying. 9. As for the Sinclair family, my dad has been calling me non-stop these days, even wanting to come to the company to see me. Finally, he managed to make his way to me. His eyes were bloodshot, and he looked utterly disheveled, hunched over. He pleaded ingratiatingly, "Charlotte, please help your father. The company's funding chain has broken, and without new capital to fill the gap, it's going to go bankrupt. This is the work of my entire life. I can't just stand by and watch it all go to waste." I shook my head and said, "Dad, you're at the age where you should retire anyway, why not just step down?" His eyes suddenly lit up as if grasping at a lifeline and he said eagerly, "Charlotte, why don't you fund the acquisition of Sinclair Group rather than letting someone else benefit? Dad would rather it be bought by you. Just give Dad a portion of Shaw Group's shares." My dad spoke with excitement, his expression fervent, as if he had already pictured the day he'd become a shareholder of Shaw Group after I agreed. If my mom had seen him like this, so eager for quick gains, she wouldn't have been deceived to the point of losing her life. I coldly said, "Don't think I don't know. This is your clever son's doing. Bankruptcy is bankruptcy. I'll still pay the maintenance allowance I'm supposed to on time. As for anything else, forget it. My dad persuaded me. How about this? I'll include your name in my will from now on, but the inheritance for your younger brother won't bypass you. I shook my head and laughed bitterly. Dad, just leave your paltry assets to your beloved son. What's bankruptcy? Didn't Mum also helplessly watch your family devour her parents' estate back then? She went through this and so must you. He pointed at me in surprise. What, did you cause the company to become like this? I replied, this is my retaliation for you abandoning your first wife and neglecting me all these years. By the way, actually, your situation is still much better than Mum's. After all, back then she had to endure her husband's infidelity in marriage. He suddenly raised his voice. Charlotte, I am your father. There is no such thing as parents who are always wrong. Even if I really wronged you, you can't be so disrespectful. I had him escorted out. After the Sinclair family went bankrupt, the whole family moved into a small 3-bedroom flat. My father, now middle-aged, had to re-enter the job market. In his youth, he took shortcuts and married a wealthy woman, avoiding decades of struggle. Now he was paying the price. 10. On Arthur's side, Louis, out of their years of brotherly affection, couldn't help but take out his own money and gave him a card with £50,000. Based on Arthur's past spending habits, this amount might not even last him a day. But according to Louis, Arthur didn't like his love life to be tainted by money, and Eleanor was a proud and independent girl. So, this money would be more than enough for him to live comfortably. With this money, Arthur built a house for Eleanor's family in the countryside. And the two began discussing their marriage. People in Eleanor's rural hometown sometimes don't have such formal weddings. They don't need official registry documents. Just a local parish blessing is enough. Otherwise, how could Arthur, someone who has lost his memory, produce a national insurance number or ID card? Fortunately, this has no legal effect at all. Otherwise, bigamy alone would be enough to get him into serious trouble. Not long after, Arthur ran out of money and went to Louis for more since their last discussion ended in a deadlock. Arthur has been harboring dissatisfaction toward his 2 childhood friends. Before implementing his fake death plan, he had discussed it with these 2 friends who at the time confidently promised to help him deceive me. Now, as a result, he cannot return home and has even lost the freedom to spend money as he pleases. Arthur is deeply dissatisfied, believing that it was their failure to properly persuade me that allowed the situation to spiral out of control. Otherwise, he could have returned to the Shaw family by now and continued being the crown prince of London high society. I know that Arthur definitely hasn't given up yet. With such a vast family business, no one who isn't a fool would easily let go. He was just too trusting, thinking that I loved him so much that I couldn't help myself and would hold on to the Shaw Group for him. When he finally wins the beauty's heart, I will have managed the company to an even higher level for him. And then he can kick me out and enjoy the fruits of my labor. Unfortunately, I am now a different Charlotte, and I have come to take revenge for the Charlotte whose sincere heart was betrayed in her past life. To prevent Arthur from making a comeback, I instructed my private investigator to keep an even closer eye on his movements. Fortunately, I was cautious. Arthur really spared no effort to reclaim his property. He got another £1,000,000 from Louis, not for his own use, but to hire assassins to kill me, the wife blocking his path to wealth and fortune. His vicious appearance truly chilled me to the bone. Since he wants my life, then let him die first. 11. I made plans to have afternoon tea with Louis and James. After sitting for 10 minutes, I kept silent about what I wanted to talk to them about. Louis couldn't sit still any longer and cautiously asked, Charlotte, what brings you to us? I set down my teacup and asked with a forced smile. Is there something the 2 of you are hiding from me? James feigned confusion and asked, why do you ask that? I said, for example, how is Arthur doing now? The 2 of them instantly changed their expressions. Louis stammered, Arthur, isn't he already dead? Why are you still bringing him up? I smiled bitterly. Are you still not telling the truth? Louis avoided my gaze and said, I'm sorry. James took a deep breath and said, Charlotte, I'm sorry. We shouldn't have gone along with Arthur to deceive you. He's still alive and he's with his true love, Eleanor. My tears just fell without warning. I knew my feelings weren't wrong. He's still alive. But does he really hate me that much? He'd rather fake his death and leave me than stay with that woman. James comforted me. Charlotte, don't be sad anymore. If he doesn't have you in his heart and would rather abandon everything to be with someone else, you should think about yourself. Look, since you've been fully in charge of the Shaw Group, how well it's developed. You should follow your own path and let those who lack vision regret it. I felt a bit surprised inside. James's brotherly bond with Arthur wasn't as sincere as I thought. Think about it carefully. Arthur has been acting like a king since he was young, relying on his family background to make everyone give him face. How much of his childhood friends' closeness to him is out of genuine affection, and how much is for the sake of their family's development? Who really knows now? I am responsible for the company's major decisions out of consideration for interests. I brought the Harrington family to collaborate with the Sterling family on a major project. James and Louis knew clearly that if the cooperation fell through because of them, they would have no place left in the family. So, it was understandable that they chose to defect to me. I asked them to arrange a meeting with Arthur for me. I wanted to cut all ties with him, I said sadly. Actually, I received a message that someone is hiring a killer to assassinate me. And that person is Arthur. After exchanging a glance, they readily agreed. In the end, they helped me arrange the meeting with Arthur on a yacht off the British coast. These wealthy kids love going out to. Arthur's time is up. I'll just see him off one last time. 12. Arthur. After a long time, enjoyed the sea breeze and took a leisurely sip of red wine. He sighed, saying this was the life he should have been living. I clapped my hands and said, Arthur, long time no see. Things haven't been going too well for you lately, have they? Haven't enjoyed this rich young master's luxurious life in a while. Arthur was startled. How come it's you? James and Louis invited me. Why are you the one here? Did they betray me? I said with amusement, Arthur, don't blame others. After all, you're not exactly a good person yourself. Arthur declared war on me. Charlotte, did you already know about my plan, which is why you acted so ruthlessly and cut off all my escape routes? Let me tell you, I'm going back to the Shaw family to reclaim everything that belongs to me. I nodded. But in the eyes of the public, you're already a dead man. Even if you go back, there won't be a place for you. Arthur was furious. Didn't you love me deeply? Why did you scheme against me like this? I replied coldly. You were the one who acted heartlessly first, so I had no choice but to respond in kind. Don't be angry. The Shaw Group will always belong to the Shaw family, and I'm not like my father. However, while the Shaw Group is Charlotte's territory, it will never be your possession, Arthur. Arthur took a big gulp of wine and gritted his teeth, saying, Don't be too happy too soon. Be careful that you have money to spend, but no life to use it. That was all he could say. Harsh words. He wasn't even sure he'd be able to leave this place today. I cast one last deep glance at him. He was alone on the yacht, drowning his sorrows in alcohol, drunk and leaning against the railing. After I turned to leave, I thought I heard the sound of something heavy falling into the water behind me. I didn't look back. It wasn't worth my compassion. After returning to the townhouse, I couldn't help but relax. James and Louis indeed didn't disappoint me. For the future of their respective families, they chose to sacrifice their brotherhood with Arthur to curry favor with me. They were even more afraid than I was of Arthur's return to take everything back. After all, it was their incompetence that made Arthur inevitably target them. As for me, I helped them gain significantly more influence within the family. The railing on the yacht had been tampered with. As former close friends, the two of them knew Arthur's living habits very well, so it was expected in advance that Arthur would lean against the railing and blow in the sea breeze after getting drunk. From then on, Arthur was truly a dead man. As for Eleanor, she waited anxiously at home, but Arthur never returned. She secretly went near the Shaw Group headquarters to inquire, but heard no news that Arthur had returned to the Shaw residence. She went back alone. Disappointed, she accepted the wealthy second-generation heir, Sebastian, who had pursued her before. However, just a few years into the marriage, he cheated on her and forced her to leave with nothing. She returned to the countryside alone once again. Her situation is truly vastly different from that wealthy lady of her past life who was built up with money. As for me, my career is now thriving, and under my leadership, the Shaw Group is prospering. My future will be filled with boundless glory, and I have completely bid farewell to the miserable Charlotte Sinclair of my past life. Promotion, wealth, and the death of my husband. This overwhelming fortune has finally arrived. The sun is shining brightly. My future is promising, and my good fortune is yet to come.